Okay, so first up is Bruce.
So I'm going to use the mic this morning, this afternoon. Does that help everybody? Okay. So I'm just going to give a brief overview of where we're at and of the PNCIMA process, and sort of where we're at since we had a forum in the fall or the spring of 2009. So we have a bit of a background, just our progress to date, and where we're going. So let me go back down here. Somehow we got to the. How do we get down there?
Just keep going back and go all the way back.
Yeah, we'll get there. Sorry about that.
Don't give it all away.
Yeah, okay. So a bit of context. Lots of challenges in the ocean right now. There's pressures on the ocean environment from a variety of different uses. And then there's some challenges on the economic side. There's increasing demand for using the oceans. And so given that kind of context, it lends itself well to developing a planning process. Canada's Oceans Program is guided by legislation. First of all, there's the Oceans Act, which was passed in 1996. After passing the Oceans Act, there was the publication of the Canada's Ocean Strategy, and then lastly, Canada's Oceans Action Plan. And the action plan outlines 4 pillars. One of those pillars is integrated oceans management planning. The actual action plan specifies and identifies doing some integrated ocean planning in one of 5 areas in Canada, and one of those 5 areas is in the north coast of British Columbia, the Pacific North Coast area. So in terms of governance in the area that we're talking about, these are just some different governance bodies that exist that relate to the PNCIMA area. And the first one is the First Nations Governance Committee, which is a committee made of Haida, North Coast First Nations, and coastal, Central Coast First Nation groups. And it's a body that basically is helping to advise the PNCIMA process. Second one, the Pacific Interdepartmental Oceans Committee, is basically a federal committee that's chaired by Fisheries and Oceans Canada, our Regional Director General, and it basically is a forum for communication and information exchange amongst different federal departments like Transport Canada, Natural Resources Canada, and Indian Northern Affairs, a variety of different federal departments, all about oceans. The PNCIMA Bilateral Coordination Steering Committee is a committee that's established by Memorandum of Understanding between DFO and the Coastal First Nations and the North Coast First Nations and Council of Haida Fisheries, or Council Haida First Nation. And so that basically established a steering committee that is a relationship between DFO and the First Nations regarding the PNCIMA area. And the last committee is basically a federal provincial committee that is, talks about oceans matters. And the whole point of sort of describing this is just that there's a variety of bodies that are forming the PNCIMA process. Some of those are federal provincial, some of them are federal departments, and then we have the First Nation federal committees. So what is PNCIMA? So it's really an initiative to process will develop an integrated oceans management plan for the Pacific Central North Coast area. The goal is to ensure sustainable human use.
Stand back just a little bit.
Sorry about that. I had a hard copy and I left it on the airplane, so I'm having to read and talk at the same time. So.
Oh, I see. I want to see.
No, it's okay. So basically it's to ensure sustainable human use and to conserve ecological diversity of the marine area. And in the planning process, we'll bring together sort of the interested parties in the North Pacific area, commercial recreational users, First Nations, environmental non-government organizations, government agencies, and communities, local communities as well. So the purpose of this slide is basically to illustrate the range of uses that occur in the PNCIMA area. And so you have, there's a variety of ecological features, there are transportation routes, there are commercial fishing activities that occur in this area, and it sort of illustrates the fact that there's a lot of different interests in this area, and there's a need to talk to each other and collaborate and to understand each other's interests.
Is that too dark? Let's go with one.
Yep, that's fine. I can, is it easier having the lights down?
That's
That better that way?
It's 50-50.
Sure, okay. So the initiative is a number of things that we'd like to accomplish through the PNCIMA initiative. First is balancing the socioeconomic, cultural, and ecological objectives for oceans, improving integration of conflicting uses, improving coordination of new and existing processes, creating greater certainty and stability in ocean management, strengthening relationships through involvement of commercial and recreational users, NGOs, governments, and First Nations, and ensuring ocean values and resources are managed sustainably. And then lastly, is respecting existing legislative authorities. So governments all have various authorities, and the process is intended to respect those existing authorities. So the initiative will not, I'll put all three down here, establish a new regulatory framework. It will not affect existing environmental assessment processes. So that's under the Canadian Environmental Assessment Act or other legislation that require environmental assessment. And it will not restrict management authorities in carrying out their mandates. So it's not intended to put any kind of boundaries on that. Yes, Lizzie?
Well, I'm getting confused here. In the previous one, you had create greater certainty and stability in ocean management. And then you say, will not restrict management authorities in carrying out their mandates. Well, if you're going to achieve the one on the previous slide, certainty and stability in ocean management, I don't know how you can do that without restricting management authorities in carrying out their mandates, because so far their mandates have got the commercial fisheries on this coast in the mess that it's in now. So how can you create certainty on the one sense without restricting some of the federal government's mandates that they've had to wield over our heads to this point in time?
I think probably what that is driving at is that, certainly government authorities, government agencies, receive mandates from Parliament.
Yeah.
And so I don't think this is intended to kind of restrict a mandate that is given to an agency through Parliament, but